Marta found the empty account the same morning Claudia announced she was leaving to take some time for herself. Almost all the company's savings were gone, and Claudia's smile didn't waver for a second as she said it. They had founded the studio together 6 years earlier, with 2 borrowed laptops and a single client. They split everything 50-50, decisions, profits, and the bad months when nobody got paid. Claudia was the public face, the one who closed deals and charmed clients in every meeting. Marta preferred to stay behind the scenes, handling the numbers, the deadlines, the contracts nobody else read in full. For years it worked like that, no visible cracks, like a perfectly tuned clock. The change started almost imperceptibly, about 8 months before that morning.